What's the most used man-made material on Earth? I'll give you the answer. Concrete. This is the Concrete Logic Podcast. Have you ever stopped to think about the sidewalks, driveways, bridges, or the buildings around you? They're all made from concrete. So why don't we discuss it more? In each episode of Concrete Logic, we'll explore a unique concrete-related topic with the help of industry professionals shaping the trade's future. We'll talk with suppliers, contractors, architects, engineers, specialists, and even proponents of competing materials. We'll get their views on concrete and their visions for its future. So get ready to mix things up with Concrete Logic, where we turn the spotlight on the material that's everywhere but often overlooked. This is the Concrete Logic Podcast. And now, here's your host, Seth Tandit.
Welcome to another episode of the Concrete Logic Podcast, and today I have a special guest, a guest that's been requested numerous times. I told him, just because I work for Baker doesn't mean I get direct access to Dan Baker, but Dan Baker's joining us today, founder of Baker Concrete Construction. Baker was just recently, again, for the 17th year in a row, named the largest concrete contractor in the nation by ENR. And we're Baker, I like to say we because I work for Baker. We have 25 offices over the country, and now I said 8,000 employees, but Dan corrected me and said it's probably a little bit more than 8,000 employees now. Co-workers, we call them.
Co-workers,
yes, sir. But Dan, thank you for joining me on the show today. I've been excited about, ever since you said earlier this year you would do it, I've been excited about having this discussion with you.
Well, hopefully we'll have a little fun.
Yeah.
It's not fun every day, but it's been a little rugged now and then, but most of the time,
yeah.
In order to stay around as long as I have personally and the company has, it's got to be some fun or you wouldn't stay.
Yeah. So 1968.
1968.
The Baker's been around since. Yes, sir. Well, I believe it or not, a year and a half ago, I had a listener call in. I have on the Concrete Logic Podcast website, there's a way for someone to click on a microphone, okay, and they can leave me a voicemail. And what I encourage folks that listen to the podcast to do is to leave me a message and say, hey, I want to hear a topic on something in concrete, and they'll tell me what that is. Or they'll say, hey, could you reach out to a certain person in the industry and interview them on the podcast? And I have one that they left a message for you to interview, and we're going to play it here.
Hey Seth, this is Gregory Rice here, ECT Construction down in Huntsville, Alabama. Also done some work up in the Carolinas. Love your show. Met a few of your guests at World Concrete this year. Nothing but good things to say about the show. It's been very informative. Listen to it every week. This is a request for a potential guest. I would love to hear from Mr. Dan Baker. I'm actually looking for more information on him, or maybe trying to get some information from him about his road to success in the concrete industry. I actually own a small concrete company, residential, and looking to get more commercial space, and just would love to get some information from him, just his road to success, how he did it, what were some major steps that I might need to take to try and achieve the same type things. So if you would, you're more than welcome to play this on the podcast, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. Thank you.
So that was Gregory Rice from Alabama. He has his own concrete construction business. He's starting in residential, similar to where you started.
Gotcha.
And he's looking to you and saying, he's like, what are the next steps that I should be doing, should I plan for, to start growing as a concrete contractor from where he is right now?
Gotcha. So he would like to, he's starting very small, like Dan Baker and his two brothers.
Yep.
He's trying to grow into the next Baker Concrete Construction.
That's right.
Okay, we can work on that.
Yeah. So so could you talk a little bit about, maybe you could talk a little bit about, you can kind of relate to where he is right now. Mm-hmm. You think back then, back to 1968, what were you thinking now? Were you thinking about being the largest concrete contractor in the nation, or what were you thinking?
Well, some backstory to 1968. I came up, I have 5 brothers and sisters. We came up on a truck garden farm that was organic. So my dad was a little head of Whole Foods, mm-hmm. like 60 years, but nobody really cared much about organic gardening at the time. He did. That's what we grew up on, was vegetables. Any meat we got from hunting. I went from there to get my first paying job. I went to work on the hay wagon with the biggest farmer in Butler County. He taught me a lot. Jerry Gerber taught me how to really make hay when the sun shines and plow when the ground is right, which means you have to be on or ahead of schedule. Mm-hmm. Switch that over to residential concrete, on or ahead of schedule. All customers want schedule and price. They also want, at the end, they want quality also, not during, but afterwards. You best have the quality, or they'll make you tear it out, put it back. So you're best off to try to become 100% contractor. When I left the farm, I was going to college at Miami University of Ohio, which is where the Baker family came from. Butler County, Ohio, Miami University, Oxford, Ohio. My grandmother had 7 sons and 5 daughters. My dad was one of those sons. I have 35 first cousins. Most of them are still in Butler County, Ohio. They were farm people first and construction people second. So when you had 12 kids, the young ones stayed on the farm to plant and plow and feed. The older ones went off with grandfather to do residential concrete and residential masonry, concrete and masonry. They did both. They do the footer, residential, sometimes you do the whole thing. Footers, foundations, they would lay block and pour the floor, and then they would turn it over to a stick builder to put the wood on top. So that's what Elmer Baker and Sons, there's like 3 uncles that worked direct for grandfather. But as a lot of brothers, they didn't necessarily get along, so they split, and pretty soon there was 2 companies, and pretty soon there was 3 companies. And so when I went to college, I left the farm, and I was going to go to Armco Steel to try to be an industrial engineer or industrial tech and get me a suit and tie and buy a Mustang. And the Mustang was the big deal, so I wanted to get a Mustang. That was really, didn't think about doing high-rise or industrial. So in order to get my tuition paid, I still needed to work. So I worked side by side with my grandfather, who was 75 and I was 18. And I did intern with Armco Steel one summer, but it was such a terrible place to work. It was just really, the company and the union hated each other. They were sandbagging, subterfuge, sabotage. I couldn't stand the place, so I didn't really, that turned my head away from industrial engineering, and I really enjoyed working side by side with my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
I was a pretty good laborer first. Finally, I got to finish a little concrete or learn, but they didn't pay me to learn. They paid, as a laborer, I'll take care of you, but when the concrete's down, you're off the clock. Well, I wasn't old enough to drive away. I didn't have any license or any car, so they'd say, if you want to learn to finish, you just play around on the side with the guys next to you. So I did that. Grandfather came one day and said, put that boy out there on knee boards and get those pipes and drains. Because I was lighter, maybe 80 pounds or 90 pounds or something. And I did pretty good, I guess. He said, put him back on the payroll. So that's how I learned over time, side by side with him and my uncles, on how to place and finish concrete. Also, I learned how to mix mortar with a hoe, with the little mortar hoe with the holes in it.
Yeah.
Big mortar box, 4 bags at a time. I never did learn how to lay block or brick or stone, but I learned how to mud the wall and mud the ears. The deal was, if you could keep the mud boards full, you'd get up on the scaffold and learn a little bit. So I tried to get to learn how to lay, but they said, you're a college boy, we're not teaching you that. We're teaching your cousins how to do it, but you're just a good laborer. So I learned to be a good laborer. February 1968, 1967, my grandfather could not work with the tools anymore, and he said, I'm hanging it up. And I didn't want him to do that. I said, well, you get to work and I'll build the work. He didn't want to do that. So I went off to work for another outfit.
Mm-hmm.
We got busy. He said, do you know any more good help? And I said, 2 younger brothers, and they came. So I was a sophomore at Miami. Jim was a freshman at Miami. Ken was still a senior in high school. And we worked all summer and into the winter, in between classes and on weekends. The man decides he's going to cut our money, and we heard about that. So I called a little brotherly meeting, the 3 of us, and I said, the man's going to cut our money tomorrow. Yes. What are we going to do? I said, we're going into business for ourselves. Ken, the youngest, said, Dan, look out the window. It's snowing, the ground is frozen. How are we going to get any work? I said, I don't know, but I'm leaving. You can stay if you want. Jim says, no, I'm going too. Ken's, okay, so we go into the room the next morning. He decides he's cutting our money, 50 cents on the hour. I stood up and said, we quit. He said, you're fired, your 2 brothers can stay. They both got up and said, no, we all go. He said, what are you going to do now? I said, we're going into business for ourselves. He said, you'll eat snowballs this winter. I said, well, that won't be nothing new. We've eaten snowballs all our life. So we left. The first job we got was not a concrete job. It was an excavation job. There were mounds of topsoil. The builder had built a house in the woods and dumped topsoil, and it froze. It was still frozen. He said, if you will take your spud bars and picks and shovels and spread that dirt, give you $200. Shake hands. Luckily that spring, the Chinook wind came out of the northwest and thawed the ground quicker, so we got to start earlier. And we did have some residential driveways, patios, and sidewalks. The slabs were mostly in on these flat houses. We had a 1962 pickup truck that Dad bought from Greyhound. It still had Greyhound on the side of the truck. And it really wouldn't start with a key. You had to park it on a hill and roll it down and get the engine to start. So one truck from 3 brothers, and we had our tools, bags and tools and a bull float. No machine. My grandfather didn't believe in a machine. I said, why don't we get one of those? And he said, no. machine will break down, boy, but your arm won't. So he never used a machine in his life. We ended up getting residential plats, which is usually what you get. If you get more than one house, it's usually like 20 or 30 or 40. And so we would park the truck on the hill, and then we would take our tools and we'd run from one house to the next, to the next, to the next. We pour some slabs and we drop back, pour some driveways, drop back, pour some patios, pour some porches, steps. And we would average about 5 houses a day. So let's say it's 2,000 square feet by the time you get the slab and the patio and the driveway. We'd do about 10,000 feet a day with 3 brothers and a couple other young kids, younger than us. One was 14 years old. His name was Randy Hicks. And we also had to spread the gravel before we had to prep the slabs before we poured them. So gravel, then you put down viscoline, you put down mesh. So the young ones, he just dropped them off on the gravel pile. They couldn't drive away because they didn't have a car. And they would spread that gravel, and they best be done by the time we got back to pick them up. So that's how, and then we would start pouring the concrete. And we kind of saturated the greater Oxford area. There were maybe 3 builders there, and we were doing most of the concrete work for the 3 different builders. So we saturated, and it was my job then to go find more business. So I drove to Hamilton, Ohio, which is about 12 miles away from Oxford. I saw this great big A-frame house in the woods, and I thought, wow, that's a unique house. If we could get the concrete on that, we could kind of parlay off of it or market or develop business from that. So I went back there, and there was a guy laying a stone wall, and I said, my name's Dan Baker. I'd like to know how to get the concrete work on this house. He said, where are you from? I said, I'm from Oxford, Ohio. He said, you any kin to Elmer Baker? I said, yes, he's my grandfather. He said, He said, well, my slabs are done. My slabs are done. So the guy that was laying the stone wall was also the owner of the house. And it turns out the Great Spirit was looking out over us. He was also a general contractor, light commercial, light industrial. In Ohio in those days, in 68, 69, 70, right around there, all light commercial, light industrial was union. So anyway, he said, have you ever done exposed aggregate? And I said, yes, sir. He said, well, how would you go about charging me for that? I said, well, my brothers and I will come to do the patio, and we'll place it and finish it. You buy the concrete, and when we're done, if you don't like it, we'll tear it out and pay for the concrete. He said, that sounds like a pretty good idea. He says, okay, we'll get that done. We ran back to the library and tried to, there was no Google. We couldn't Google on exposed aggregate. No, we really hadn't done it before.
You fibbed.
Yeah, I fibbed a little bit, stretched the truth. So we came back for a pre-construction meeting. He said, you've never done this before, have you? I said, no, sir. He said, well, we'll do it together. And it's still there, Seth, to this day. The patio is still there now. It did lose a few little it was, we had to cast stone on it and then work it into the surface and then spray the top and then wash it off and scrub it. We only had the epoxy and 2 or 3 or 4 pebbles. It turned out pretty damn good.
Yeah.
Anyway, it turned out he was a general. He said, how would you like to do a branch bank? I said, well, we'd love to do bank, but you know we're not union. He said, I know that. He said, you'll get caught and you'll have to sign up. He said, but I assume you want to do bigger and better things in your life than just residential. I said, yes, we'd like to. And so we did. The branch bank on Peck and Williams in Hamilton, First National Bank, got caught. My brother Ken, now this is a way to go from residential to commercial and be ambidextrous. So he has a nail apron on that says Butler County Lumber. He has a hammer in a loop on the side. He has a margin trowel with a float hanging on it. And he's shoveling a string line to put a form. So the labor business agent walks on the job and he said, and Ken's 17 or 18 years old. He said, what trade are you? He said, I'm a laborer. He said, I'm the laborer's BA. Let me see your book. We didn't have a book. He said, well, I don't have a book, but I want to get one. So his name was Bob Rumgate. So Bob said, well, who else is here? He said, my brothers are around the other side. So Jim and I were. So he tried to make us all laborers, and I said, well, we can't be laborers because two of us got to be finishers. He said, well, you're going to have to go sign up. And we went to Cincinnati, and the finishers would not let us in the Cincinnati local. So we went to Dayton and booked in and then transferred. They can't stop you from transferring your book.
Okay.
So we did that. Anyway, we still were doing residential and light commercial, light industrial for Bob Gebhardt. And then a couple other contractors saw these kids working for Gebhardt, and they said, union? Yeah. So we got a couple more jobs in Butler County, and then pretty soon, the first major job we got in downtown Cincinnati was from Dugan and Myers, which is a company that we now is a member of our consortium. So Fran Dugan gave us our first, what we called in those days, high-rise, which was like a 25-story building in downtown Cincinnati.
Wow. What was the tallest building before that you did?
Oh, well, that was the first thing over 2 stories. A couple schools was 2 or 3 stories, but then it was this 25-story, and we just did the pumping, placing, and finishing. We didn't do forms, we didn't do resteel.
Okay.
But that's how we crossed over into like commercial, light industrial. And then I'll stop when we get to the Turner story. Turner basically liked our work as mud people. They decided in about 1978, 6 years or 10 years after we'd been mud only, we started to do total package with Turner. They asked us one day if we would bid a total footer, foundation, and floor package. And I said, well, we really don't know how to set forms. And they said, well, we'll teach you, and we'll give you the men that would have run it for us if we were still going to do our own. So they did. They gave us Carl Kelly, Joe Grimmelsman, Mike Manns, Fred Terhar, 4 or 5 field superintendents that built buildings for them. The Kelly family still is at Baker. So there was Carl Kelly, then Mark Kelly that's still here.
Yeah, industrial. Yeah.
Then there's 3 Kellys.
Sean, yeah.
There's at least 3, and then there's another one that works for Lithgow. But there's 3 generations of Kellys. So the dad was the first one that had ever done anything big, and he said, well, what's your vision? I said, well, we're going to do the same kind of work as you just finished, but we're not there yet. He said, well, what do you want me to do? I said, well, Only carpenter work I got right now is edge forms. I need you to set some edge forms. He said, put the tools back on. I said, yes, sir. He said, and where are we going after that? And I said, we're going to do bigger stuff. So he was a little older than I was, and he was very, very top-notch builder. And so we ended up getting some more work from Turner at Ford, and then we did get Carl where he said he wanted to be and where we wanted to be before he brought his sons in and then his grandsons in. And Carl just left this earth about a year ago now.
Yeah.
But he was a founding woodman. There's wood, iron, and mud in Baker. I was a founding mudman that learned from my grandfather. He was a founding woodman or form guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've had founding ironworkers as well. So wood, iron, and mud is where we decided that was a better way to get control of the job, control of the schedule, is if we did the total package.
Mm-hmm.
Mud only, we were just at the mercy of if it was ready or not. Most of the time, it wasn't ready.
Mm.
So I decided we're going to try to get there. And that's how we crossed into what we call total package now.
Yeah.
So first it was light commercial, light industrial, pump, place, finish. Then it was total package, mostly in commercial or residential or institutional, like schools, apartments, or office buildings. And then we also stretched out into industrial and did big plants for. Now, once upon a time, we did 16 Walmart distribution centers in a row, like one after another, after another, after another, after another.
Right.
That's because we continuously improved our ways, means, and methods. We didn't want to sit on our laurels. We wanted to learn more and more and more. So we joined the ACI and learned more about how you're supposed to place and finish concrete. That is the key. You will not be able to cross over from residential, whose standards aren't quite as high as commercial. Industrial.
Yeah.
And then they're higher when you get to nuclear and ports like in Virginia. But you have to cross over. If you don't cross over, you'll just be a fly-by-night.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to make that decision. You can't wear short pants anymore. You can't wear tennis shoes anymore. You can't keep your shirt off. You got to put your shirt on. You got to have a hard hat. You got to have safety glasses. You got to have safety professionals now. That doesn't really bode in the residential world. I'm not knocking it.
Right.
I'm just saying if you do want to cross over, you have to cross over your mind first. And then you embrace training and development, embrace knowledge. Then you probably can cross over and get some work. You got to have a customer. So somehow or another, you got to convince that customer. So maybe you got to stretch the truth a little bit to get an opportunity, and then you better do it.
Right. Do what you say you're going to do.
That's right. And then Dan Baker never did finish Miami University. I went 5 years, but I didn't finish.
Mm-hmm.
The last year was when Kent State happened. You know, the Vietnam War was on, and Kent State, the National Guard shot 5 kids.
Yep.
And they shut all the schools down in the MAC. And by then I had 100 co-workers working. I just never went back.
Yeah.
So, so I still to this day wish I would have finished. I wish I would have taken more classes in accounting. I didn't really do that, so I didn't know much. That's a weak side for Dan, is accounting. I can't hardly spell IT, but I'm learning from Jennifer, and technology is a little. Nowadays, I think it's good to embrace BIM. It's good to embrace CRM. It's good to embrace data. If you're gonna scale it, you got to have data. You got to have data. You got to have guidelines. You got to know what I call templated allotment. That means you need to get to know how much. If I'm a young kid and I'm trying to learn how much I can charge for the work, I got to know how much it costs first, and then I got to understand what the overhead is, and I got to see if I can get a margin on top of that. If I can't get any work that way, I better figure out what the market is and reverse engineer what it takes to put the general conditions on, the schedule, the safety, you don't have to have BIM if you're crossing over into light commercial, light industrial, but it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt to have it, but you can't have a separate BIM person. You got to have one of these ops guys that does the BIM at night. So you got to wear two hats, at least two hats. When you're a mom and pop, you got to wear 10 hats. Yeah. Some days you're the garbage can. Some days you sharpen the pencils. Some days you take off in price. Some days you jump right in and pour concrete. The original baker was there were no wives and no kids. So I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but we had no encumbrances. We just worked 100 hours a week. Then maybe 10 years later we were down to 80. Maybe 10 years later we're down to 60.
Yeah.
I'm still 60. So really, instead of 78, I'm really 120 in working years.
Right.
Now today I'm on your show and talking to you about. So this is kind of work, but it's kind of fun work to talk to you about where we came
Your
from.
journey, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I got from your journey, the story you just told, from residential to light commercial, the reason why you got that work is because someone saw the quality of work you were doing on residential.
Yes.
And was comfortable with what they saw to offer you to do light commercial work.
Well, a branch bank is almost not much bigger than a house, so it was. It wasn't a stretch for him, but he knew we were going to get caught. So if, let's just say that was an open shop instead of a union, we would have just done the same thing in like commercial, light industrial as we did in residential. That means we would take care of that customer. If we said we're going to do this as per plans and specs, then we had to keep our word. We were too young to be able to bullshit them. If we didn't do it right, we better tear it out and put it back and pay for it. So you got to be prepared to do what you say you're going to do. So Baker believes, if you look at the values, the philosophy is we're a people-first company. Co-workers first. You take care of the co-workers, you teach the co-workers what we have to do to take care of our second customer, which is the owner, the CM, the designer, sometimes political atmosphere. You take care of those customers. Take care of these, they'll help you take care of those. So when we found holes in our knowledge base, we went to get one and bring them in, a pro, as best as we could.
How do you know when you're ready to hire like that?
You're never ready to hire. You don't have enough money to do it.
Right.
It's basically a risk. Sometimes you have to pay that person more than you pay yourself. A couple of my friends says, Dan, how did you get that? You must have paid him more than you paid yourself. I said, I did. They said, how would you do that? I said, well, he knew more than I did. But we learned. We learned. And then ACI was a real opportunity. We had an older gentleman that was outside the company. His name was Carl Beimel. He was very connected to ACI and ASTM because he sold product. He sold shake hardener that went on the surface and then you machined it in. So I got to know him, and he sold his company to master builders. And he was kind of a mom and pop, and Master Builder was a great big giant. He was there non-compete for 3 years, and so then he came, and this is when BD came into the company. He said, Dan, did you ever think about hiring a salesman? And I thought, no, I guess if there is a salesman in the company, it's Dan already. So we don't have a salesman. We have a finisher that takes off in prices at night and knocks on the doors and sells stuff. That's me. So I'd have to replace me. I said, well, who did you have in mind? He said, me. Now, Carl was 65 at the time. This was probably 1982 or something like that. And I said, wow, I'm thinking, I can't afford this guy, this man. He's a gentleman and a scholar and a professional and an engineer from Purdue, and he's on ACI and ASTM. I said, well, Carl, I'm flattered that you'd be interested in coming with us, but I'm not sure how I could compensate you. He said, well, what do you pay your project managers? I said, $80,000. He said, that's good enough. So he came with the company, and he said, I think we can position Baker to be one of the top 3 industrial contractors in the nation, because we can put you in the specifications. So he did that. He got us in the specifications at Ford Motor, General Motors, Super Value, Kroger, as an industrial floor expert contractor. Mm-hmm. One of 3. He got it done. That helped us stretch out. And then when you do it, if you want to grow, you got to be prepared to do what you got to do. You got to go, if they want you and they put you in the spec and they want you to go to Alabama, you got to go to Alabama, even if you're from Ohio. So then you have to get mobile. So again, if you're crossing over, there's light industrial, can go into heavy industrial. There's light commercial that can go into heavy commercial or residential or institutional. Like stadiums. Stadiums, the first stadium we ever did, we lost $1 million. 7 figures. That's the University of Arkansas basketball stadium.
Oh, really?
And all we had was the structure. We didn't even have the floors. We had the structure. That's the formwork, the re-steel, place and finish the structure. We got in trouble. We got crossways with the designer. We had a young kid that was very, very, very smart, too smart. He called the customer out, the designer out, in front of a table full of white hats. He said, this design is wrong. He should have not said that in that meeting. It was wrong, but he was right. He was just dead right. So that next day, the inspector put Corps of Engineer inspections on our job and hunted for everything they could find. And we had to tear out a couple columns, and then we got behind schedule. Then we had to bring in an extra crane, an extra forming system. By this time, it's fall of the year in Arkansas. The locals went off the deer hunt and never came back. So we had to send 40 men in from Cincinnati, union scale on per diem. So by the time we got done with a $4 million structural package, it cost us $5 million. we could have said, holy shit, we're never doing another stadium. Cincinnati Bengals came out. I remember going down the hall to the CFO's office at the time, and I said, you know, the Bengals are coming. The Cincinnati Bengals are coming out. He said, yep. He said, we're not doing that. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean we're not doing that?
Mm-hmm.
Last time I checked, it says Baker Concrete. It doesn't say CFO Concrete here. I said, well, the first package is a foundation, about $10 million foundation package. You think we can do that? He said, yeah, I think we can do that. I said, okay, well, we'll do that. We bid it and we got it. Second package was $7 million flood wall package. I said, do you think we can do that? He said, yeah, I think we can do that. Pretty soon we're at 17 mil. Now the structural package comes out. That's the vents and the whole stadium. There's 3 bidders: Baker, Dugan and Myers, and Kokosi.
Mm-hmm.
Did some spade work, some BD work. From my understanding, Kokosin was not going to be a player.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's down to 2. So we had a couple little meetings in the company, and I said, what do you like best, Mr. Operations? Power or greed? He said, what are you talking about? I said, do you like power or money? He said, I don't understand why you're asking me this question. I said, well, what if there was only one bidder on the Bengals? What would your price be if there's 3 bidders on the Bengals? He said, well, $30 million at $40 million at 9%. I said, well, that's not the budget, is it? He said, no. I said, what's the budget? He said, 14. I said, why wouldn't you get 14? Well, it won't sell. Why? Because there's more than one bidder. I said, what if there was only one bidder? He said, oh, Dan, you're not talking about a JV. I said, yes, I'm talking about a JV.
Uh-huh.
So we did. We JV'd up. There was only one bidder. Baker gets the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
We made real good return. The CFO thought, so a point here is, if you're going to go to the big league, you cannot hide from the risk. You got to wade into it. That doesn't mean you don't want to have calculated risk, but it's still risk.
Mm-hmm.
You got a schedule in the NFL. You will open those gates, and it better not be your fault. If you can't open the gates, it better not be your fault, because it's, I don't know what it is now, but liquidated damages are probably $10 million a game.
Wow.
So if you're behind the schedule and you cost them a game, not good.
No.
Not good. It could break your whole company.
Yeah.
So if you're going to come from residential, depends on how far up you want to go. We are still wading in where angels fear to tread sometimes as a company, or we wouldn't be where we are now.
Right.
We really were number 1 for 35, with the exception of 1 year. So it's not 17, it's 17 and 18. There was 1 year that we were number 2. That's because we did get out over our skis. We did get on too many fronts. We did have a blow or 2 to the side of the head. And when that happens, it's like a house of cards.
Mm-hmm.
Banks get mad. Bonding companies won't give you a bond. It's a bitch to get out of that. Luckily, we had some very good people, and we had some very good relationships, and We came back from number 2 back to number 1, and we've stayed there since.
Right.
We got to watch. We have to watch every day. Constant vigilance, 24/7. I say 24/7. You need a little bit of sleep. And nowadays, the world has changed. We got political environment right now.
Yeah.
The last few days we've seen that. We got economy. There's industrially, it looks like industrial work is really moving again.
Yeah, and infrastructure work, a lot of infrastructure work out there.
But right here in D.C., we only have one job in D.C. right now. We have jobs in Virginia, but one job in D.C. So D.C. is in recession.
Mm-hmm.
From a commercial, residential, institutional standpoint, D.C.'s in recession. So is Cincinnati. So is Phoenix, Arizona. Commercial, residential, institutional, but not in the big data center, not in the TSMC chip plant. We got a $250 million job. So if you want to cross over and you want to scale it, you have to be 24. Somebody's got to be 24/7. Maybe not everybody in the whole bell curve of talent.
Yeah.
Some people do get to go home and see the baby's mother or father. Some people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have to go where needed, when needed, stay for a while. So daily balance of life is not in my own personal wheelhouse. It's periodic balance of life.
Mm-hmm.
I like to work hard. Then when I get a chance to go up the mountain to go after a Dow sheep, that's a vacation to Dan.
Right.
It's not a vacation, not a vacation to everybody.
Uh-huh. You were saying about folks having to. Some folks get to come home at night. Some folks don't. So you got to travel to where the work is.
Yeah, number one, you got to take care of that customer. If you want repeat business, if the customer needs you to go somewhere, you got to go, or you got to explain to them why you can't.
Mm-hmm.
If you just say, no, I'm not going, they remember that the next time out. Or if they're in a tight, you're in a tight. You might as well look at it that way, because you are. Best thing to do is don't let anything bad happen to the customer. Get out ahead of it. Think ahead, plan ahead, organize ahead. Anticipate rocks in the road. Have an auxiliary plan if you get a typhoon or a hurricane or earthquake or something. In Florida, every freaking job says, oh, we got delayed. There was water in the hole. Guess what? There's water in every hole in Florida. Oh, there's wind in the air. Guess what? There's wind in the air Yes, there's such a thing as too much, like a hurricane, like 5 hurricanes in 1 year. That would probably get you off the hook. Mm-hmm. But 1 hurricane, that ain't gonna get you off the hook. You either knew or should have known. That's the way they think about it. If you're the largest concrete contractor in the nation and you've been there, they expect you either knew or should have known. We hired you because you're safe, you make schedule, your quality's good. If you screw it up, you make it right. And you were productive enough in order to make a little bit of buck so you can get bond and come back again next year. Other than that, they don't want to hear any excuses. There's no excuse. There's no excuse for the Marine Corps, right?
No. Is this when you're going to tell me what you were saying before we hit record about the Amish?
Oh, Amish Marines. Yeah. I just coined that. I imagine it's been said before, but an Amish Marine would be former farmer that turned to residential. In residential, you are a carpenter and a laborer and a finisher and an iron worker. Sometimes an excavator. Sometimes it's with a shovel, sometimes with a backhoe. But you're ambidextrous. That means if you watch the Amish, they'll put up a barn in a weekend. There's no such thing as, oh, I'm a carpenter, I don't do tie steel, or I don't do finished concrete, or I don't do this, or I don't do that. There's no jurisdiction, Amish. It's a team effort. A lot of times the ladies come too and bring the food, and so you don't have to go to the restaurant down the road. You just eat the picnic and get back on the barn. You're done in the weekend. A regular crew I gotta bring in the foundation guy. Oh, I gotta bring in the roofer. Oh, I gotta bring in the form guy and the re-steel guy and the Amish get it done in half the time with half the amount of people. The Marine takes no excuses. There's no excuses. We don't give the Marines any excuses. Us American citizens, if the Marines go, we expect they're going to take the hill.
Yeah.
No matter what, they're going to take the hill. Now, it's nice to have the Air Force soften it up a bit for you, but if they're not, we still expect you to take the hill. That's basically, if you're a subcontractor, that's what's expected of you, whether you like it or not. So if you don't like it, you probably don't want to go into the arena. The arena is, the NFL's going to open that gate. It better be ready.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think if we were to sum up everything that you've talked about, which was, there's a lot of tidbits that you can pull out of there for someone that's starting in Gregory's level,
yes,
his residential level. But I think what we talk about here at Baker all the time is people honor grit. I think if you followed those three things, and I think that's a good summary of what you're saying. You got to have the right people, honor what you say you said you're going to do, and have the grit to do it.
True.
Yeah. So
people, if you look back at Baker, there was no money. We had zero equity. We started with $500, I think. I don't remember exactly. I said I had $250 and my baby brothers had $125 apiece. Somewhere around there, that's all we had to start. No bank, no bond. The only way that Baker could get where they got is with people. We were also too young for anybody to really give you much of a chance. And if you did screw up, you better make it right. Even if it cost you, even if you couldn't eat that week, you better make it right.
Yeah.
So that you get repeat business. You can't scale it if you can't get repeat business. You got to treat the people the way you want to be treated. That's the biblical golden rule. Don't ask a man to do anything you wouldn't do yourself. Now I have to ask people to do IT because I can't do it myself. But I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to learn.
But you gotta hire the people to do the things that you don't know. That's what I'm getting from your story. Is you've hired key people.
Yes.
From the Turner's asking you to do form work. You didn't have the knowledge, so you hired the right folks to do that.
Yep. And we had enough of a relationship. They wanted to help us. They didn't want to do it anymore themselves. They wanted to help us do it. Now they're getting back into it. I don't know.
They can't decide if they're what
I
they want to do.
don't know.
We got some clients out there that try to do what we do.
Well, they have to get the right mindset. If they're not willing to lead by example, they will never know what you need to do to move the craft. You can't do it. You can't do it.
It's different.
Robin Hood was a hell of an archer, and he was a pretty good sword fighter. But Little John knocked his ass off the log in the river, so he wasn't real great with the sticks.
Mm-hmm.
Friar Tuck was the guy that watched the money. He was like the CFO of Robin Hood. So you got to have a team effort. And there's grit, not just wood, iron, and mud grit. Yes, there's grit, and yes, that's what they pay us for. They pay us for installing wood, iron, and mud. They do sometimes pay us from the neck up. Nowadays, I've met a lot of very smart, gritty people in the land of BIM, in the land of CRM, in the land of engineering, formwork design. That's grit too. But they only pay us when it gets installed. So we really, if we're not setting forms, tying steel, or placing concrete, Baker probably won't get paid. They might pay us a little bit nowadays for some BIM work. They might pay us a little bit for some engineering work, but that's really not our business. Our business is labor, putting it in, installing, safe and right the first time. Any other way, knock you back.
Yeah.
3 steps forward, 2 steps back. We'd rather just take 3 steps forward and keep on going, but occasionally we have to do a post-mortem, do an engaging review of the project. It's not just a PFSR, a project financial status report. An engaging review is, let's just talk about high rise. You start up as high as you can get, and you walk down the floors. You get a feel for the morale of the men on the job. You get a feel for the quality, what you think the punch list is going to be. You get a feel for the schedule pretty damn quick, because the customer will tell you if you're behind schedule or not. You start looking at the material. How are we doing as budgeted, as built? Well, if you're running over 1,000 cubic yards, there's something wrong. You go to the trailer and meet the customer. If the customer is happy, they will say good things about your people. If the customer's not happy, they're glad to see the old man come on the job because they want to tell them how bad they were doing. So it's always good to do an engaging review. Every job, doesn't matter. If you're residential and you want to move, post-mortem is a very smart thing. How did we do so good at this? Let's do some more. How did we do this? If we had it to do over again, what would we do different? One, we'd get a truck that the key turns so you can drive instead of rolling it down the hill. Because running from house to house to house is not as efficient as moving down the street.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things you pick up and try to incorporate. There's plenty of mistakes to make every day. Just try not to make the same ones twice, and you'll be in pretty good shape.
There you go. Well, I think we'll pause for today.
Yeah.
Hopefully you enjoyed doing this,
I did.
and we can do it again.
Or Carl would be another good one to bring.
We'll ask Carl.
Or Kenny.
Mr. Fender.
Yeah, he was here since he was a baby 35 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time today, and like I said, hopefully we'll do something like this again. And until next time, let's keep it concrete.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Concrete Logic Podcast. If you got value from the show, here's how you can provide value back to support the show. Visit concretelogicpodcast.com and click the donate button to send value back. All dollar amounts are truly appreciated. And now, to close out the show, here's Mike Dunton.
That alarm always sings couple hours before the sun comes up. Open up the side, put some diesel in the lights and wait till the trucks roll up. Yeah, this ain't how most folks live their lives, dripping in sweat, working overtime. But while they're tying their ties for their 9 to 5s, we're out here changing these skylines with wood, iron, and mud. We work hard for $1, give thanks to the Lord above. Never make a man do something you can't prove. Hard work calls for a drink or two. Expect more, it's written in our blood. With wood, star heat to the woods of the Georgia pine. Good old boys and girls who ain't afraid of getting dirty for a clean time. And if you want to see the fire in a grown man's eyes beneath the hot summer sun, find the wild-eyed boys clocking days and nights, working hard to get that job done with wood, iron, and mud. We work hard for a dollar, give thanks to the Lord above. The color of our collars ain't white or blue, we're all gray collar through and through. Expect more, it's written in our blood. With wood, iron, and mud. With wood, iron, and mud. We work hard for a dollar, give thanks to the Lord above.